Today's gospel, I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to do a little bit different kind of a talk because there was one time back when I was at St. Nicholas in Laurel, I did a talk on a series on the Eucharist, as opposed to just doing every single part of John chapter 6. I just kind of did an overview as a series on that. So what I did was I took a look at it, augmented it a bit, and then kind of wanted to present that because we'll have John chapter 6 for the next 5 weeks. So one of the things I want to talk about is the priesthood with the Eucharist, the priesthood. And so what do we see in the Old Testament regarding the priesthood, representation, and bread that's there in the miraculous bread there in the Old Testament. So I wanted to talk about those things. So first of all, in order to have a sacrifice, you need the priest to do the sacrifice. Well, one of the things, the first time we see this in the book of Genesis is in Genesis chapter 14, where Abraham, or Abram at the time, has this nephew Lot. Lot is captured by some of the kings of the surrounding area. Abram goes out, puts out a group of men to try to retake Lot. He is successful. And when he comes back, there's the king of Salem, Melchizedek, who's there to offer a sacrifice of bread and wine. And it's interesting because a couple of things. One is that Abram sees him as a hire and gives him a tenth. The other thing is that the sacrifice of bread and wine, you wouldn't expect that because after all, just a few chapters beforehand, Cain's sacrifice of an animal is accepted while Abel's sacrifice of the produce is rejected. So, it's interesting that Melchizedek offers the gifts of bread and wine. Also, who is this Melchizedek? Mysterious figure, as the book of Hebrews says, without genealogy, without beginning or end. Is he Christ? Is he some angel of God? Who is this Melchizedek? And then the other thing is that with the patriarchs throughout Genesis, we have God appears to them, and then all of a sudden they build an altar, and they rename the place based on the appearance of God. So it's always that firstborn. And that changes with the priesthood in Exodus. When we think of Exodus, we have Moses going up on the mountain to receive the commandments of God. Moses is delayed. The people are like, well, we don't know where he is. Let's build something to signify the coming out of Egypt with a strong arm. So they show the golden calf. And there's revelry and immorality in the camp as a result of the golden calf. Moses comes down the mountain, is appalled by their behavior, says basically, who's with me? The Levites, the tribe of Levi says they're with them. They go through and they kill the leaders. And so they become the priest. The firstborn now has to be redeemed. And so the Levites are the ones who minister in the temple. If somebody from the tribe of Asher or Naphtali or Dan wanted to be a minister in the temple, they absolutely could not be. Only the Levites are now the priests in the temple. Also, what we think about is that representation. So we have the priest for the sacrifice. We also have that representation. And Passover is, in a way, that representation. As Moses is gathering the people to leave Egypt, they have to eat as in flight. They have to take the blood, they have to purchase a lamb, or if they're too small of a family, go in with another family, purchase a lamb, put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost, and the death angel will pass over them. And so it is that representation, because each time for thousands of years, they have the questions, the children ask the question, why is this night different than any other night? And why do we eat unleavened bread and roast lamb? So they eat as in flight, representation of that first Passover. The other thing is that we have the bread. When we think about the miraculous bread, we certainly think about manna in the desert, that the people of Israel were saying, we're starving out here. Why, what have you brought us out here for? We're dying out here in the desert. So Moses prays, and the manna comes, and it comes in the ground, and like a frost, like a hoarfrost comes out from the ground, and the people come and they take the manna. And if they take a little, they have enough. If they take a lot, they have enough. So it's no matter what it is, they have plenty of manna to eat and to sustain themselves in the desert. Psalm 78 calls the manna miraculous, says it's the bread of angels. And the manna continues all the way until they enter into the promised land. But once they enter into the promised land, then they eat the fruit of the land, so no longer needing the manna. I'll also see in Elisha the prophet, or Elisha the prophet, he miraculously multiplies the loaves in 2 Kings chapter 4. We also see the bread of the presence when we think about the Holy of Holies. There in the Holy of Holies is the Ark of the Covenant. There is the lampstand, the golden lampstand. There's also the table, and on that table has the 12 loaves of bread, the bread of presence that depict the 12 tribes of Israel. Again, why would you depict Israel as being a loaf of bread? And the loaf of bread has to be removed and eaten every Sabbath, because bread gets stale. Bread gets all kinds of problems with bread, if you leave bread out for a long period of time. So why would you depict Israel as bread? But yet that's what we see in the Holy of Holies. So one of the things that we think about with the Old Testament is that we see, in a way, this prefigurement. In a way, we see the beginnings of the priesthood. We see the idea of representation, that it's not simply a memorial, but it is a representation, acting as if the Exodus was that night each year. We also see the miraculous bread, whether it be the manna or the bread of the presence. So in a way, what we see when we think about the New Testament, it's not somehow this new and novel thing coming up, but it really was shown in the Old Testament and really in a way fulfilled in the New. Thanks, and God bless.